Hey guys, it's Brian again from LakeHickoryScuba and Marina. Got another quick video for you here. It's that time of the year for us where we service all our rigs, and we're going to do a complete overhaul of all of our first stage and second stages that we use for training, whether it's our classroom rigs or even just our rental rigs that we rent out. We clean ours roughly every 3 to 6 months just because they go through so much abuse as far as renting out. We overhaul ours every 6 months. Now, typically on yours, you're only going to overhaul them once a year or once every 2 years. We do use ours quite a bit, so we service ours more than what the manufacturer states is recommended, just simply because we do use ours quite a bit. And I'm not going to show you the actual overhaul of the second stage here. I'm just going to show you a quick disassembly and reassembly just so that you understand what parts are in there. If you're not a service technician, I strongly encourage you only take your life support equipment. And once again, that's what scuba gear is. It is life support equipment. It keeps you alive underwater. I strongly encourage you to take it to a certified technician to get it worked on. If you are a service technician, once again, most importantly, make sure you use the right tools and the right replacement parts when you're doing an overhaul. But to start on this is just a rover second stage, nothing fancy about it. I'm going to show you a quick disassembly of it. On this particular guy, there's a little pin right here that holds the faceplate from coming unscrewed. I'm just going to take my pick, stick it up underneath it, pull that pin out, set it to the side, make sure I don't lose it. On the faceplate itself, I'm going to slowly screw it to the left, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Once I have it broke free, all right, set it off to the side. Then I'm going to have my diaphragm and diaphragm ring. Pop them apart. Okay. And of course, like I said, on this particular rig, I am going to check for any holes in the diaphragm, replace it if I need to. This rig is getting a complete overhaul, so once I make the video here for you guys, I'll tear it back apart and I'll do all the servicing for it. But here on the side, I'm also going to have a port plug. I'm going to take out that port plug. All right, set it off to the side. Now I need to get the bottom of this exhaust tee off, and to do that, there's a little pin in this particular model. I'm just going to push out on the pin here, and then if I need to take a pair of needle nose pliers or some type of pliers, I can reach in, pull that pin out. Go ahead and set it to the side, and the center of the exhaust tee here should just pop right out, and that's going to give me access to the to this piece here, which is my exhaust diaphragm, which I'd end up replacing. Now I can come in here and I can actually take apart my hose adapter, and I can also take out my low pressure seat, and my poppet and all that that's for this particular rig. So I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to take off my hose adapter, set it aside. I'll come back to it just shortly. Take off my little spacer tool. Now I should be able to pull out my demand lever assembly simply by pushing out, and I want to make sure that I don't lose the O-ring here, even though I'm going to replace it. If it was just a cleaning on that particular guy, I could replace it. Pull out my demand lever assembly. And then the last thing I got to do to the housing, and for time's sake, I'm not going to do it now, but I would cut this zip tie, being sure not to damage the mouthpiece, and take the mouthpiece off, and that's pretty much the housing. Now I'm going to work on my demand lever assembly first. I'm going to go ahead and take it apart. I want to make sure that I make note of the orientation of all these parts. For when I go to put it back together, you can put it together in the wrong order or in the wrong orientation, and of course that's going to make the second stage not work properly. So I'm going to take off the little nut here. Being sure not to lose these parts. They are under spring tension. Parts can go flying if you ain't careful. I'm going to slowly remove the housing part of the demand lever. I'm going to have a low pressure seat here and a spring. Set them aside. I'm going to take off my demand lever. And there's also a little washer here, and I want to be careful not to lose this little washer, so I'm going to set it aside. All right. Now next I'm going to come back over here to my hose adapter, and I notice that there's a little green poppet in there, so I'm going to remove it. Okay, and this guy actually only screws so far. I'm going to take the butt end of my punch, or my pick here, and simply just push it out. Now, I do have an O-ring here. I also have an O-ring on the poppet, and anywhere else on the second stage that I've got O-rings, I would replace them if it's a complete overhaul. Clean them, make sure that they're in good working order, make sure they're not dry rotted or frayed or smashed down, and of course I would apply Crystal Lube after the fact, whether I'm using a new O-ring or not. Now, to reassemble this guy, I'm just going to reverse the procedure. I'm going to start with my poppet, place it back in there. Go ahead and push it back up into place. Get it screwed back in. Now, depending on your manufacturers, with Mares, there are a certain amount of turns that we turn these poppets in and out on. Once again, that's why it is so important that we take them to certified technicians to get them worked on, because if we don't, they're not going to be properly adjusted. So we'll get this guy put back in there. Make sure everything's in good working order with it. All right, come back to my demand lever assembly. Go ahead and start putting the components back together with it. This sometimes can be the difficult part because, like I said, these components sometimes are under spring tension here. So if you ain't careful and you let go of something, these parts can go flying in every which direction. Once again, it's very important that we do take it to a certified technician to get it worked on. And it's very important that we use the correct tools to work on it. And if you do rebuild your own regs, once again, it is important that we use the correct components too. We strongly encourage you only to use manufacturer parts. Don't ever use parts that are not meant to be on, meaning the O-rings and stuff. You can't just go to the hardware and get the O-rings for these regs. They do take very specific O-rings. All right, so I'm going to come back to my second stage housing, and I'm going to go ahead and replace my exhaust diaphragm. Just press it up in there, and you want to be careful not to break off any of those spokes. All right, once you got it in there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and replace this bottom part to my exhaust tee. Normally, I'd wait until I'd finished the complete overhaul, but I'm going to go ahead and put this in there just because I'm here. All right. Now, I'm going to replace my demand lever assembly. Being careful to make sure I get it in the correct orientation. All right. Now, I need to replace this O-ring. We'll get it seated back into position. Just like that. All right, now at this point, I can replace my spacer and my hose adapter. All right. We'll get her tightened down real good. Just like so. Tighten up anything that needs to be tightened up. And of course, we are going to put this guy back onto the first stage, check the cracking pressure, and get it adjusted to where it breathes properly. Okay. Now next, I'm going to go ahead and replace my diaphragm and my diaphragm ring, and of course my faceplate. Now I want to remember that pin I took out in the very beginning. I want to make sure I get everything nice and lined up. And I'm going to come back in here and replace this pin. Get pushed into position. Okay. And last, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to replace this port plug. Now, I still have to tear this guy back apart, completely service it. This last part, replacing this port plug, I would actually leave the port plug out as I'm checking the cracking pressure on the second stage, just because it makes it a lot easier to get in there to adjust it. And guys, that's just a quick video on the assembly or the disassembly and reassembly of a second stage regulator. Like I said, it's most important that you do take it to a proper certified technician to get it worked on. If you are a technician, you're independent, and you're working on it, please make sure you use the proper tools and the correct parts. Now, like I said, I do got to tear this guy back apart, clean it and service it, and then put it back together and check the crack and pressure on it. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to check back each week for a new one. As always, guys, make sure you follow us on Twitter, you like us on Facebook, pin us on Pinterest, subscribe to us here on YouTube, and as always, guys, we appreciate your business.